Hello everyone, Richard Carlton here. We are adjusting the trajectory of what we are doing, getting everything live and alignment and all set correctly. So it is Friday. My last day, oh my God, Jacob, you're huge. All right, so it's my last day of live streaming from Dallas, Texas. That came out very wrong. It's the last day in Dallas, Texas for live streaming, so don't freak. Next week, we'll be back to normal broadcast locations. Very cool. So welcome, everyone, to another awesome day of FileMaker training. So let's talk briefly about what we are doing here today. So I am Richard Carlton. I'm the creator of fmtraining.tv. We have an upcoming broadcast schedule. So today is where you can ask questions about FileMaker Server. Why is Richard the way he is? Why is Jacob orange? All the burning questions you have in your heart. Feel free to type those in on Twitch, YouTube, or Discord. I have verified that the video is going out well. Welcome, Think WJ, Michelle Gravel, people letting me know that the video is functioning correctly. Yeah, welcome. So if you have questions today, it's kind of an open-ended Q&A. I think we can take on just about any question. We're not going to really talk about any of Nick's super deep, dark, magical stuff that he does. We'll save that when Nick comes back next week. That being said, Jacob here is one of our residing server experts. And so, boy, that didn't work out the right way. So let me, I'm trying to zoom in over here and take a look at this. So you can see the upcoming broadcast schedule. Monday's a basic beginning process for slide panels, button bars, things like that. Very basic. Tuesday is a weird one. It's like, hey, Siri, do something in FileMaker for me. So you could tell Siri. So Siri is always firing off incorrectly. In fact, even in the office right now, she's like going, hey, would you like to do something? So you can't really say her name. So S person. So S person. If we say S person, do something in FileMaker, delete all the databases, delete all the records, crash the server, restart the server. So Calvin Moserman will cover that on Tuesday. It'll be exciting. Nick will be back for some more valueless stuff. About the time you think you know everything about valueless or something, Nick does something unnatural with the valueless, and it's different, weird, and interesting. So that's good stuff. He'll be here Wednesday and Thursday as well. And then Jacob, you're going to be, I guess, covering. It's an interesting conversation. I'm not going to be here, which is kind of an interesting conversation in itself, because I'm going to be in a plane flying back from Dallas.
What do we do?
Yeah, Friday.
Oh, that Friday. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's going to be a fun one. Yes.
Yeah, well, if I can make it, I will. I'm supposed to be back in town by then. I'm flying out, and I'm like flying counter to the direction or with the direction of rotation of the planet or something. So I'm only supposed to age in dog years or something. I don't know. It's weird. So when you go forward in time, I'm going to go backwards in time 3 hours. So hopefully I'll make that event. We're talking about file maintenance, compressed copies, corrupted copies for that matter, recovered files, all the unsavory stuff that all of you should be avoiding if you're not using crashed files. But some of you secretly right now, we know who you are. I'm going to point my finger at you. You know who you are. You're using crashed files on your FileMaker files, and you're hoping you don't get burned by the corruption thing. So we are going to talk about that, address that a little bit. I'm going to hit the little button here. Oh, reminder, before I show Jacob, reminder that if you want to support the channel, once again, I'm not asking for free money or donations. What I am asking is that you buy our complete training bundle right here, which is amazing. It has hours and hours of Jacob going through installations on all sorts of complex stuff, including AWS and Windows. Someone goes,
literally like 5 hours.
It's like 5 or 6 hours, and it's so funny because someone the other day goes, like, can you show me how to do it in like 20 minutes? We're like, no. So that comes up periodically. We tell people to buy the training. Or just buy Jacob's time again. You could pay full price, $600-$700, $800.
The 20-minute version is you click next a bunch of times, and then you have a FileMaker server that's not resilient. It automatically opens databases. It's not tuned for performance. You can keep going on. All
right, so that's Jacob Taylor. So he is not Siri. It's, hey, Jacob, build me a new server. So you may need enable WebDirect first. Yes. Oh, there's questions going on. Okay, so we do have questions from people. If you have questions, definitely ask us. Today is a good day for that. Christian, to respond to David Angel, there's always a first question we have. I installed FileMaker Server on my Windows 11 Pro computer or laptop or something, working with FileMaker Pro. He installed FileMaker Server on his machine.
Oh, yeah. That's a good one.
Okay.
David Angel, did you turn on web publishing engine? Which is not included in your screenshot, and I cannot tell. If you did not do that, you will not have WebDirect,
Okay,
and you will get a
so
502
and
error.
so Christian Schmidt, of course, being the ultimate competent individual that he is, decide to bring that up. So let me see if I can
Yep.
find his
And
comment here.
to enable it, yeah, and to enable WPE, you will have to either feed it Java or have it installed on the system already, whichever.
Yeah, so you
And
have
if
to
you're
come
doing
over here
modern
and
FileMaker, it should be Java 11.
yeah, okay. So yeah, the installation to be very clear with everything, we can't cover how you screwed up your installation of Windows in 1 hour because, like I said, we go through it in detail, and it takes us about 5 hours to train you on how to do a AWS installation, including going to AWS, picking your EC2 instance, and then putting Windows on top of that. Right? We don't do it for Linux because we're still kind of out, kind of not totally sold on the Linux bugginess yet. Linux has been around for a long time, but Claire still has some hanging bugs with it. As a result, we don't recommend it just yet. Some people want to suffer and try it first. That's fine, but that's not us.
Yep.
So if you have a question
We've
like,
still had
yeah,
some like crashing problems even with the current version.
mm-hmm.
And like the Windows server's rock solid, so I'm perfectly happy to recommend, right, Windows Server 2019, FileMaker Server 19.4.2. Frankly, really haven't had problems with it at all. And so if I can give people options where they might have problems or won't have problems probably, then I'm going to go with the won't probably. However, right, looking forward, there will be, and even on price and a bunch of other reasons, it will become more enticing over time. The Linux server will be. So
Is Java installed? I guess is the question. Is that still an issue with the FileMaker server, Jacob Taylor?
it doesn't come with it at all anymore.
But you still need it, right?
Yes,
And
to
so,
enable WebDirect or the XML API, WPE,
okay.
all that
And so
stuff.
we're using Corretto on that. Once again, that's covered in our
We
training.
do.
Once again, it's funny because we're answering questions, but a lot of the questions, if you buy our training and watch the training, you'll actually get all the answers to this stuff.
Yeah. And David Angel, if you, for example, followed old directions and installed Java 8, that may not work anymore. They are, again, that's why I said Java 11. They are officially recommending that. It's not they don't do the specific patch version recommendations anymore because that stuff doesn't matter too much. But my interpretation of we are now recommending Java 11 is they are now relying on Java 11 features. So.
All right, so there we go. All right. Other questions that we have from the troops? I'm looking at YouTube. It's awful quiet. Michelle, WJ, Rick, if you're there. People on Twitch, questions. David asks if
Don't know. Sure.
is that
It's
is
the
that's
right
not
major. It's the right major version, but if you're having problems with it, then the answer is probably no. So, like if FileMaker can't find it, so there's two things. It only checks for we'll call it a pre-installed Java version, which is like for example, with Corretto, you run the installer, it's available globally on the system. It only checks for that when you first launch FileMaker Server. So if you launch FileMaker Server and then install Java, it may not pick it up automatically. If you do a full restart, either reboot the machine or services menu in Windows, restart FileMaker Server completely, then we'll call it redetect if there's a globally installed Java.
Okay. Oregon Dean had a comment or a book here he wrote. Had a strange one yesterday working on the file on the server, saw a brief flash of a permission denied dialog and then the file closed. Couldn't reopen it. Permissions error. The file was still running. The data API closed the file on the server. Okay, things are moving. I hate it when they move. Downloaded it, reopened it, found the FM client that would be the FM app, right? FM app extended privilege is what he means here. Yeah, it was not enabled. I re-enabled it, re-uploaded it, and all's well again. Weird. Yeah, there
bugs can cause it. Yes,
that's I can only tell you that it's really unusual. I used to say the dog never eats your homework, right? Kids will go to school like, "Where's your homework?" Oh, well, not that they didn't do it. The dog ate. Dog ate my homework. So I've had customers tell me, I put the data in, now it's gone. 99% of the time, or I would say maybe 95% of the time, that's bullshit, right? The customer never put it in, or they put it in somewhere else. They forgot what they were doing. But there is that 5% time. I didn't even think it used to be 5%, but there is a 5% of the time when FileMaker eats is the dog and it ate your homework. And Oregon Dean sounds like he ran into that yesterday. It's pretty rare. We used to have one where if you ran in FileMaker 16, if you ran an impossibly complex calculation on a custom function and it was on the PSOS side of the server on server 16, the file, it would actually damage the file. You could actually damage a file by a calculation, and what it would do is it would set a flag so that the web publishing engine and PHP couldn't be used anymore. You could still open it in Pro, and Pro and Go would work fine, and I guess WebDirect might work fine. We didn't use it, but the web publishing engine would be broke, and the only way to fix it was to clone the file, clone the file was the easiest way to fix it. And we had at the time it was a test file with sample data, so it was okay for us to do that. But we tried to show it to Claris, explained to Claris it was such an amazingly awesome bug and sufficiently complex to put together that they couldn't reproduce it, even though we said here's a server and they saw it happen. They just kind of gave up and walked away. So there are a handful of really treacherous bugs in it that
somewhere,
that you're going to run into, and I think it's really rare. But Oregon Dean just ran square into one. All right, moving along. Next comment.
Yep. So Ken asked, what's a good memory usage percent on a FileMaker server? I'm consistently at 80% from the admin console. That's correct. I'm pretty sure that's because Ken is on mediums and you are running it as close to the metal as you're going to get. So you're always going to be basically totally filled. There's not really any way around that on a medium server. On a large, you might have a percent less than that. To be honest, if you're not using the RAM, you're wasting it in a certain sense. Obviously, on the other side, if you're using too much, you'll have a problem.
Well, that's where Ken's right there, right? So what?
Yeah.
So Jacob Taylor kind of cut the corner here. So Ken, balloon hot air balloon Ken is using Amazon EC2. One, he's using these servers called their T3. So T3 means it just he's using a medium size, but T3 is this class of server, and he used mediums, which is right. I had this conversation yesterday with Jacob because we were reshooting some videos in that video course that everyone should buy, right? And we were updating some content, and I was asking him, I said, well, because we used to use T3 or T2 mediums, and they were okay, but the memory requirements from Claris is going up. FileMaker 19.5, their memory requirements go up even more, right? You don't know that. I didn't tell you about it. It's super triple secret. I can't, if you guys quote me on it, I'll deny ever saying it, and I will delete this recording. But the memory requirements are going to continue to go up because Claris had this epiphany that if they do more RAM, then it goes faster, and like, duh! Right? So they're using more RAM, which means that if you were a weasel, and I'm not saying Ken's a weasel, but I always tell people, your FileMaker server should have at least 16 gigs of RAM. The medium is what? Is that a 4 or an 8? Is that an 8?
4.
Oof.
It's 4.
Oof.
Yeah. It's literally you literally cannot operate it with less than that, and it's again, like our conversation we had yesterday, if you have any additional requirement at all, like even it's 5 users, but they're all going to be on WebDirect, I'm going to tell you to get a large.
Yeah, so you get the 8
get away
gigs
with
of memory.
5 pros on medium.
Yeah, the 8 gigs of memory, and I consider that substandard. I think a 16 is much better, but you have to have the money to do it. And the hot air balloon people, I guess, are trying to save money, which is great. It's association. They're not, it's not like Apple buying servers, so you got a limited budget, and I get all that. But Ken, so Ken is kind of up against the edge, and so his if you're at 80% on most things in life, you're used up most of it, and you're out of maneuvering room. And RAM, that you could run that RAM out real quick, especially at 4. In reality, the difference between Windows 11 and Windows Server 2021 is the admin tools for the server. That's a statement David makes. I don't know the veracity of that, but historically...
Yeah. While also Windows Server 2021 also isn't supported by Claris on any version of FileMaker, so... Yeah. It may work. It might, yeah. I had a customer demand put 18 on server 2019, I think, which wasn't supported at the time. It turns out that does work actually. Don't do it; it's not supported, but
Okay.
it's one of those. If you run it yourself and you're willing to take the potential consequences of something like that, whatever. Okay,
That's fine.
you can make decisions for your business, but
Yep.
yeah.
I have a question that's a YouTube question over here, but let me ask because it's relevant to this question today. So remember the other day someone reported that they had one of our video training courses wouldn't play. They were using the old video player, Jacob Taylor. Do you remember that we did a test and it worked okay with that sample file? Remember the FIAS training?
Hmm?
Did you look at it? Did you know if it worked? I never
I
looked at
tested it personally. Yeah,
it. And it
it
worked
worked
fine.
great.
Okay,
Uh-huh.
so
On Monterey.
Michael
I was impressed.
Michelle Kerwan reports that he bought our FileMaker 17 training, which means he's using the older video player, and he logged in the other day and it's not playing correctly. Is that right? No, it should play just fine. So I suggest if you have a
Yeah, re-download it or something.
re-download it. Basically, what's happening as we kind of transition forward is that the subscriptions are literally going to be subscriptions, and we're going to kind of going forward, we're going to guarantee that as long as your subscription is current, it's going to play. Historically, I always told people we wouldn't get rid of the stuff or shut it off, and we're not doing that on purpose. If it's not working, let me know. We'll check it. But we had someone report this exact same issue the other day. We gave them a new video player, and it was fine.
Yeah.
So
we're just not like explicitly maintaining and that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
We're not deleting, removing, taking it down, any of that kind of thing. It's in maintenance mode.
Yeah.
It's like the web presentation engine.
Yeah. But
like
if you
the
buy
XML API.
if you buy our current subscription, you get the new video player, and we are updating and working on that and adding new content to it and updating that. So that's that question. So if you have a video player problem, shoot an email to support@rcconsulting.com and we will get on that. Okay, next question as we slide down. David Angel is talking about dedicated IPs and bad gateways and other stuff.
Yeah, the thing worth addressing there is people are complaining on the server 2019 having issues where they try and look at WebDirect and they get 502 bad gateway. There are 2 or 3 different things that cause that. One of them is actually a Windows licensing problem. We had somebody come in who was trying to do a student version of Windows Server that does not possess features in the Windows Server component. I don't know which features. I didn't figure out which ones, but something that FileMaker Server needs is not supported by that license. So they got an error like that. Second, right, obviously, if you can't get the web presentation engine, which is the other checkbox on that, the screenshot we showed from David Angel earlier, if you can't get that to turn on, which requires Java 11 preferably, then yeah, you're going to get the same thing because 502 means the backend application server. Like I'm trying to talk to my backend and it's not responding or it's not there or something like that. So
okay, I do have a question on Discord. Good question, not Discord, correction. Twitch. YouTube? Twitch. So this is ADEMPE Adam Mimpe. I don't even know what that is. This person says if our server is only accessed on a local network or via a VPN, is an SSL required for encryption, or is that only needed if using WebDirect? I already have encrypted the databases, so he says he's using, or he or she is using EAR, and they're asking about SSL. So
sure. So 2 factors that go into that. People ask that question because they don't want to spend the money and they don't see why it would be necessary. And it is in fact true. FileMaker Server ships with it's better now actually in later versions of 19, but a temporary certificate basically. So you do have something. You have encryption. The data is encrypted, but encryption is not the only thing that SSL gives you. SSL gives you also authentication, and that is the simplest explanation is that the names match. Your FileMaker server's, domain name or whatever, you can validate that basically that you're talking to the correct server. Right. FileMaker.rcconsulting.com. That's not our server address, but if you have one of those, great, perfect. So if you type that into your thing and you get the little green lock, that's because your FileMaker Pro in this case, or your browser if you're using WebDirect, was able to successfully validate by a third party that you're talking to the correct server. So that is the other half of what you get from an SSL certificate. It is not merely encryption. So if you have compliance requirements, the discussion is that would be required, basically. Some businesses are small, some industries will say are not interesting, and so you don't care, and you can make that decision as a business decision. In general, I recommend against it, actually. But if you have no compliance requirements in that sense,
Well, the thing is that
but
you're finding these days is that there's more and more and more dependencies upon. It's like Google and these big companies expect to you to have an HTTPS connection, and when
yep,
you don't, it's almost like an outlier, and they may freak out. And we've seen this before with
yeah,
various things. We're like, hey, this used to work, and it doesn't work anymore. Why doesn't it work? And we go round and round and round, and then Jacob over here in the orange that way. In the orange sweatshirt, loses his in the meeting and tells the engineers they should be using HTTPS at RCC because they use HTTP and it breaks something, and then he loses his mind. So
yeah,
it's I know it's $75, but your life will be simpler just from the tech support problems that you're going to avoid doing it. So I don't know. That's
yeah. There's two things that go into it that are like feature related. So if you're on Macs, for example, Safari will fight you to the death even if you have encryption, if it's not good, if it's not, if you don't have both ends of it, basically. So that's one thing. And Safari is what does your container data and things like that in
yeah.
Pro. It's Edge on Windows now these days. But so there's that kind of end of it. The other part is, for example, if your users are accessing via WebDirect, maybe that's not. We'll have the conversation. It doesn't sound like that applies to the
Right.
question asker here, but if they're using WebDirect, for example, many browsers, most of them, I think. I don't know if Safari does it. I think they do, actually. I think they follow those standards too. Basically, if you don't have we'll call it a fully valid, like green bar SSL certificate for your WebDirect connection, there are features the browser will not let you do, period.
Hmm.
They are considered powerful. The web page will never be able to use them
Okay.
on the basis that it's not fully secure. So that's there's various things that go into that. There's different situations. Some of it doesn't matter that much for WebDirect. One thing that would matter for WebDirect, for example, is picking files off of your computer. So if you do an import process or download files from WebDirect, for example, you do either of those two things, those in Chrome at least will be locked down if you aren't using a fully valid SSL certificate, because they consider it to be, a powerful feature. You're kind of accessing the hard drive or something like that, and so they block you.
Okay, so back to Michelle Kerwan. We have a couple good questions that are coming in here. Michael Kerwan, sorry, not Michelle. Michael Kerwan. He was playing with the old training file. He pressed the update button. Yeah, so we're going to probably just remove the update button because we're not posting updates for FileMaker 17 in any possible way. Not unless Claire sends me a check to do it, which I doubt they're going to do. So the update button is trying to get updates on something that there are no updates for it, and there's a bug there with that. So just send you a new file, and we'll work on maybe removing that button. If you see the button, don't push it. That would be the simplest fix on that. Alpha Colburn 73, one of our routine people here on Twitch, says, what is the next instance size up, I guess, once you go beyond a T3 double XL 2XL? So once you go now the 2XL, that's a 16 gig, or is that a 32? What is
Should
it?
be 30. That should be 32. We're on an X large, so
So we're
yeah,
on
that should
what?
be
So
32.
RCC, my corporate stuff is on not a double X large, but just on an extra large, which has 16, a
It's
bunch of.
large.
Yeah,
It's a quad core 16. Yeah.
yeah. So he's asking what's above a 2XL, and he says here, see, I think it's he says M5 question mark, things like that. Yeah, I mean you're heading off
hmm
into the area of expensive servers, right? So that's where that's.
Yeah. I mean, if you need something past a 2XL, you should just transition to an M5 at that point,
Yeah.
because that implies that you're at 100 concurrents on the FileMaker server at least, um, or you're in that ballpark basically.
Yep.
So
Okay, cool. So Lynn, and it's actually right here on the screen right there. I have a file on a server I haven't worked on in a while. There's only one user For this file today, I see a new table is created called recovered library. Yes. It only has 2 fields from, so a recovered library is a result of a recovery command running on the file, finding a structural defect. It's why I need to attend that conversation next Friday, because there's stuff about it even Jacob doesn't know that goes back for years. But when you have a FileMaker file, and I'm explaining this to you, but the goal is for you not to freak out. If you crash the file and keep using the crash file, eventually you'll put corruption or damage into the file. Okay, it's corruption. There's also a thing called structural corruption, which is the term that Claris loosely gave to it unofficially, the engineering department. I doubt anyone down there who's above the grade of senior engineering manager knows anything about this. But basically, the idea is that structural corruption is where Claris has a programming bug, and for example, it's been in various versions of FileMaker, and you say you delete a container, and there's a bug, and it actually doesn't delete the container correctly. It removes it from the user's presence, but if you think about removing a container that's an internal container, I'm talking about an internal container saved in the file, it should remove that blob of image, picture, whatever it is, and free up the file space. There's been certain versions of FileMaker going back to FileMaker 15, 16, 14, whatever, where it didn't do this correctly. I couldn't tell you what version. It doesn't particularly matter. So when you run the recovery, it's doing all this stuff. If it finds a structural defect, it knows it's there. It doesn't really know what to do with it, because what it is it's literally like, it's kind of hard to even come up with an analogy for this, but it's like if I had in Louisiana, every once in a while, the Department I remember living there, and Louisiana is a state, and it's from the South, and it was nice people there, but the Department of Transportation people, there was a dead raccoon in the road, and most places you go, when you're repainting the lines and stuff on the road, if there's any trash, you get them off the road, then you paint. Well, the thing in Louisiana, for whatever reason, is that they paint over the dead animals, and they just keep going. They say, and so there's this dead animal with double yellow lines as a do not pass zone. And so that's kind of like a structural defect. FileMaker kind of sprays over it. You drive around it. Everyone ignores it. You run a recover command. It comes through there. It's like the cleanup department. It sees a dead animal. It doesn't really know who it belongs to, who put it there, and why it was left there, and why it has paint marks on it. It doesn't know. So what it does is what they do is they create a temporary table called the recover table, and it will create some fields in there and records in there and throw stuff in there it doesn't know what to do with. So those are artifacts, things that discovered on doing a recovery like an inspection. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with the file. It doesn't mean it's corrupted. It's found things in the file that ideally shouldn't be there. And most of the time it'll be something small and not very big and of no consequence, but like an icon or something like that. I mean, if you had a 10 terabyte image or gigabyte image that was in there in the recovered blob, then that would cause concern, right? I would be concerned about that. And if you have that problem, email support, we'll talk about it. But that's what that is. We're going to talk about it in great depth on Friday, this coming Friday, week from today. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. So FileMaker has a defect in it. It just paints over the dead animal instead of deleting it. And then the recover comes back through and goes, what the hell is this animal doing here, and why was it painted? And then it doesn't even know what to do with it. I mean, obviously we would throw it in the trash, but maybe the dead animal is important. Maybe it's made of gold bricks and we shouldn't delete it. So we're going to stick it in a temporary table that it creates called recovered library. And there are items that they're basically dead raccoons it finds in your file structure. But it doesn't want to delete them on the outside chance that you might need them. Okay. So I have not done a recover on the file. So does FileMaker do it by itself? Okay. Historically, no. But here's what we find out from Claris over the last case, say 3 years since their new management team took over. I have seen where if you close a file on the FileMaker server, it does some management, maintenance, and cleanup on it, where it tries to make the file smaller. My guess is that the engineering crew, without telling anyone else and without documenting it, took the part of the recovery process and added it to the file close process on FileMaker Server.
Yep.
I've seen what you're saying specific. I've seen it myself, and I said a bunch of cuss words in short order because I realized that engineering had done something and hadn't told anyone, and I only discovered it because I saw a dead raccoon painted over in the front of my house, and it was like,
Yeah.
okay, so
I've been I also, I'll put it this way, I don't have anything to support it except that I'm seeing more things done at file close time. I'm also seeing more things done at backup time. There's a bunch of maintenance that didn't previously happen when a backup ran because they would just run. It's just a file copy, like that's all it would do.
right.
And I'm just gonna say it's more than a file copy at this point. And
Yeah. So I'm not complaining that they're doing this. I think it's probably important that they're doing it for a reason, and the product is more and more stable. So I think it's good, but there's not documentation. There's no transparency on this stuff, and only after basically Jacob sends an email to them, and they tell Jacob to kiss his, and then I have to escalate it to a product manager, and then the product manager leans on the technical support department to help them out, and then we get the documentation. Like that happens, and so. I'm glad that someone in product management paid attention. We greatly appreciate it when people cut through the bureaucracy, but that shouldn't be necessary, right? We should be able to find the documentation.
I'm very seriously happy with the improvements. It's just I keep being surprised by new things because it's like they're not in the changes and whatever. And right, it's like it's all good stuff, but it means that we're sitting on top of quicksand and we're not quite sure like how it's shifting or what,
Yeah. So it's all good stuff. It's just that no one told us the good stuff was in there, and then we get into a live stream or we're doing a server fix, and then we find surprises. There shouldn't be surprises out there, right?
Yeah.
So these kind of because they're preventable surprises. Preventable surprises. All right. So Moki has a question not about the dead raccoon.
Or Dean is asking about cache stuff.
Can you speak how often and when cache is written to disk? How often we know when it's written to disk? It's written to disk.
My answer is no. I can't speak to it.
We can't speak to that. That's one of the things that Claire
changes with every patch.
With every release, they're adjusting that stuff. So if you're trying to figure out timing wise and whatnot, it's under constant.
Yeah. What I'm going to tell you is if you want control over things like that or to have it happen more often at specific times, for example, that is what the cache cleaning magic script step that we've gone over on this live stream is I think, theoretically for. I think that's the purpose of that, is to give you control over parts of that process. We run it currently on our servers every hour right before the backup because that was the first half of the sentence of their advice for when to run that, because all we have is a very wishy-washy statement about when we maybe should consider thinking about potentially running it.
So Claire's, for those of you who missed this, and I don't know the date on this, we'd have to go back and hunt it down. Jacob did a live stream, and there are two server-side scripts. We're not talking about FileMaker scripts. We're talking about operating system, terminal, command, PowerShell kind of scripts that are run. And Claire's kind of builds them into the server. And there's two of them, one of which is cache cleanup, and it cleans up old caches and frees up space and does some stuff like that. Jacob, that's one of them.
Yeah, correct.
And what's the other one?
Yeah, one does like a full validate of the files.
Oh,
closes everything, does a proper validation, and then if everything passes, it opens them back up again, basically.
Okay, yeah. So that one's kind of nice to have, but the one where the cache clean.
It's loud, but it's like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Next question. If we're looking at stuff, so if Moki's using a hosting company, I ask them to do this rewrite.
Moki, for the stuff that you're trying to do, please host your own server. That's what I'm going to tell you. You are trying to express a level of control over the server. That means that you need to control the server. It needs to not be somebody else's server. That's the short version. The longer conversation is, so what he's asking about is, for example, if you wanted to have like Moki products and mokiinventory.com, right? Those are two different domains. You point them at the FileMaker server. There is a way that you could do that. You could use a UCC SSL certificate. That would allow you to have two different domains validated on SSL in the same SSL certificate. So then you plug that into FMS, and then it will happily respond with full validation on both of those addresses.
Oh, I didn't know that.
The second,
Okay.
the second, we used it with one of our clients I'm not going to name. The second part of that is he would like it so that if you go to Moki Products, it takes him to the web direct like login page.
Oh, yeah. If you're trying to do
for the
hosting
product database.
with this,
Yeah.
oh,
That's why I said this is a you need to control the server conversation. So because you can probably pull this off, yes, it is just unnecessarily complicated. I would just recommend a landing page with links because that's going to be 10 times easier. But if you are committed to doing it this way, the second modification that you would need to do is you need to go into the web server, which will be IIS on Windows, Apache on Mac, or it's Apache for now on Linux and forthcoming Nginx, and add not a redirect, as someone, I think David Angel asked, a rewrite. It is called a rewrite rule. That is called that in every web server, because what you are doing is you are taking the request that comes in from the web browser and you are rewriting it to be something else. And so in this case, you're going to take mokiproducts.com and basically hide, that's what it is in effect, the FMI WebD on the end.
Right. Okay.
So
is that like a virtual host, or is that different than a virtual host?
It's a subset of it. You combine the two basically.
Okay.
If you were doing this outside of FileMaker, you'd have a virtual host for Moki Products and Moki Inventory, like each domain, and then you could wire up stuff separately for each of those essentially.
Yeah, you go into the config file. I've done that with Apache, and you can put that in there and then shoot it to the correct directory or whatever you need to do.
And then to answer his final question, no, it doesn't have to be on-premise. Cloud, insofar as like I'm hosting a FileMaker Server product on AWS or Azure, yes, that'll work fine. Not the literal cloud product, FileMaker Cloud, that won't do it. So
if FileMaker Cloud doesn't give you, I mean, for a hosting business, they give you almost no customization of the server at all. Pretty limited. No, for everyone here asking these kind of advanced kind of questions, you need to be thinking about FileMaker Server, Mac, Windows, or Linux, and we stick them all in AWS. Some of you are really married to Microsoft, so you want to do everything with Azure, whatever, that's fine. Get a virtual host there, get that set up. But yeah, that's the way you play that with Amazon, right? Because they're the definitive largest servery hosting services provider in the world, period, right? Everyone else.
I'm not like literally married to Amazon or something. It's just we don't really have any problems with them. It's a straightforward service to use. It's good price for performance, ratio.
And they're the biggest company, and no one squeal. And I don't have to worry about, here's the thing. I don't have to worry about Amazon reading my mail, trying to sell my to ad companies like Google does. If I went to Google and did a virtual host from them, and I'd be worried about Microsoft too, but Google by far is one of the biggest, them and Facebook, there's horrifically bad companies when it comes to privacy. Just suck. Bad, right? I can't say that enough. Once upon a time, I somehow it reads my mail that I love white powdered donuts. How could you ever tell? I'm such a big guy. I love white powdered donuts, and I don't eat them. But then I start getting ads from Dolly Madison that, oh, Richard, would you like 5 cases of Dolly Madison donuts on a special deal? How does it know that? Sorry. All right, Jacob, your turn.
Moki just asked if we've been doing FileMaker Server on M1 Macs, and the answer is yes. And the second part is it's awesome. So
yeah, if you want to roll your own.
If you want to do on-site hosting or in the office Mac Mini, something like that, go for it. They're great.
Do not buy an 8 gig box, please. I've had a student slap Moki.
Get the decent one.
Do not buy no one. These M1 processors are going to be valid processors for probably 10 years, but what's not going to be valid for 10 years is 8 gigs of RAM. In fact, if they made an M1 Mac Mini with 32 gigs, I'd probably buy that. They're supposed to have a new one come out anyway.
They're going to do that. That'll be this year.
Yeah. So that way, when you buy it,
I don't know any non-public information. They have to because.
Well, there's a big press. No, it's coming up pretty soon. The next month or so, there's a big press release.
Moki, if you can't host a FileMaker server on a gig fiber connection, you have like huge other issues. You should, however, consider if your internet service provider allows you to do that. I don't think you're in the U.S., so maybe you don't have that constraint, but most residential internet in the U.S. officially bans hosting servers at your house. That's a thing you should know. If you didn't know that, now you know that. And so that is why
I used
for
to do that.
example, the difference between a residential, yeah, but you had a business internet connection.
Oh,
Business
that's
internet
right. They're all
connections
business.
are, yep, they are explicitly allowed to do that. That is one of the differences between them. So,
Okay.
yeah.
So I have a
Moki,
business
yeah,
internet
literally
connection in my residence.
check your ISP hosting contract. They may not allow running servers. That may not mean that you can't do it. It just means if you get in trouble, they're going to shut your internet off. And you probably don't want that. So
Will be Moki squeal. He'll be squealing.
let's see, what did Labo ask? For WebDirect, 2 files on the same server can have 2 different home URLs. They already do if you are linking directly to the database's sign-in screen. Because if you know the address, your server address /FMI/WebD, if you add the file name after it, it'll be /Jacob's inventory, right? Don't put the FMP12 on there, just Jacob's inventory. That'll take you to the login screen for that database. So where you'd put your username password in. So you can do that. So if you have 5 databases on there that are independent of each other, give or take, you can link to each of them. I have a client that does this. So.
All right, cool.
Right. And then what was the other one? We were looking at the screenshot. What's David Angel's?
Just as a side comparison, RCC used to do a lot of. I mean, the company's been around 33 years, so we started before there was such a thing as really the internet, or at least in modern terminology, modern parlance. Thank you, perfect words.
The web was very early.
Yeah, and then back in the day, back in 96 and 97, 98, 99, the internet was there, it was great, and then it would just go out for a while, and then people would have to figure it out. And so we had a lot of servers that were in offices, at home offices, with business connections and all that. We finally got away from that because Jacob got tired of me trying to reset a machine that was in my I have a 3-car garage that looks like cubicle office space at my home in Fairfield. And I went on a trip. I was gone for months, and then the wife didn't want to deal with that, and so they moved it to Amazon. And I was really nervous because if something happened, what are you going to do? But Amazon is just so reliable, and we have offsite backups.
We've had functionally no problems,
and if the performance was much faster, much faster. Except there
was one recovery that needed to happen at one point, but in 2 years.
But the network performance from Amazon to the internet versus my Comcast business account to the internet with static addresses and everything, Amazon was way faster, lower latency.
Yep.
Much faster.
And the next one is going to tip that up in another round. I'm pre-messaging this, Richard. We're going to get fast servers once we hire some more seniors, but
okay,
you'll like it. It'll be another round. I want to play with some stuff. We'll see. It may not be the money.
All right, Moki says, cool. If you could put a server IP on your DNS as an A record, visitors can visit your domain. Will always see the domain instead of FMP. Yep.
You'll see that. Yeah, instead of the IP or something. Correct. That's just DNS. Responding to David Angel's photo, I see. Yes, that is the correct feature. Again, you'll have to go look, either hire me to assist or something like that, or go look it up.
Okay.
Because there's all kinds of documentation all over the internet for how to do rewrites and stuff like that, and it's super different in IIS versus anything else. I'm much more familiar with not IIS, with Apache and Nginx and stuff like that.
Okay.
Because I do Linux hosting on the side.
Okay.
So.
So for educational for the rest of us, so Apache was the Linux thing, and now there's a new web server or a different web server on Linux?
There will be a new one. Yeah, it's not out yet, but they're going to switch to another one that's called Nginx for the Linux. Nginx.
E-N-G-I-N-E.
No, it's not spelled that way. I will type it out.
Oh, there you go. Moki wrote it.
There you go. I've been using it for 20 years. It is vastly superior to Apache for certain things, and it'll be certain things that are honestly not too different from what WebDirect does. It was created by, I think originally, one of the head engineers inside of Yandex, which is Russian Google, basically.
Okay.
And so it's a really light piece of software that does the not the like having 27 bajillion different features, but being the light intermediary. It does that job really well.
Okay.
Which is why I've been using it for 20 years. So,
okay.
Yeah, it's open source. We don't care if Biden sanctions it. It doesn't matter at all.
All right. So
we'll download the source code and it'll be not Nginx.
okay.
just like MySQL was owned by Oracle and they started ruining it and everybody launched MariaDB. So.
All right, so there's a question. So Jacob Taylor, do you prefer M1 Max for FileMaker as opposed to what?
Yeah, as opposed to what? So if it's between an Intel Mac and an M1 Mac, yes, an M1 Mac.
By far.
Between, yeah, but if it is between an M1 Mac and a Windows server, Yeah. I'm extremely happy with their Windows product right now. As always, it's not perfect, et cetera, but
how many Windows servers do we have in our office, Jacob?
200.
No. How many do we have in our? Because Moki's all on site.
In our office. I'm sorry, 0.
Thank you. So all our Windows boxes are all virtual Amazon boxes.
Yeah,
just to be clear.
They're all on Amazon. Yep. And I will probably show some love to the Linux server. We should probably call that out. The engineering people just put directions for how to do the Linux server inside of Docker. You guys should all have the engineering blog link bookmarked in your browser. Please do that if you've not done so, and check it occasionally. They post really cool stuff there, and I'm really happy with it. I always have to compliment them in public just to do that because I appreciate
the engineering blog at Claire's helps compensate for a lot of the documentation.
Yeah. Yep.
Missing documentation, right? So, real quick too. So for Moki, let me rephrase this for you. But Jacob is one of the rare engineers at RC who can articulate, frankly, better than I can. But Windows number 1 because we have so many of them and they run so well. Mac number 2, and because we do less of them and it might be, and we have less confidence, even though I use Macs and I'm surrounded by Macs.
They're generally great. I have more problems with it's not the Mac, it's Apple.
Yeah.
They push, and so I want to be able to encourage people to do operating system updates. They belligerently push operating system updates that break components of FileMaker Server. And so I have to be nervous about telling customers to update there. I don't have to do that on Windows or Linux.
It didn't used to be that way. And now on Linux, the problem is Linux, there's just some bugs in it. The shit don't work. So as well as Windows
it's a lot better. Yeah, it's a lot better. It gets an order of magnitude better every round. I need to retest Linux 19.4.2, like FileMaker Server Linux or Linux build of FileMaker Server 19.4.2, because 19.3 still had crasher bugs in it.
Super important. Okay, so I'm gonna pivot. Keep going here. Super pivot here for Moki. Software auto install updates on for Windows, off for Mac. Do you agree with that, Jacob? On for
generally,
Windows?
Yes.
Yeah, generally.
It's still like it's again. We had this conversation earlier. So yes, as policy, yes, the implementation of that is challenging. The reason for that, as always, is because we recommend people do not have the auto open databases turned on. Doesn't matter the platform, we recommend that be off because FileMaker Server is not yet ready to handle that situation. And if you want true full auto, scheduled outside of hours Windows updates, then
you're going to come in the office and all your shit's going to be off because the database don't turn on. Got it. Okay, correct. But it's not. It used to be we didn't do updates because after you ran the updates, your like web publishing wouldn't work, WebDirect wouldn't work, PHP wouldn't work.
After the time, it would break the admin console. Yes,
it was just horrible. So
we've not had that problem in years. They have worked very hard on that. It is. I haven't seen it in so long. I'm going to call it not an issue again. Watch me eat my words. But
right. but the Mac still can still happen on the Mac. So I run. Correct. We have had very few Mac servers. I have one, and now it's not even with a static address. You can't even get to it without a VPN. I run the updates on my personal Mac server every 18 months or so. So not ideal, but when I'm going to run the updates, I clear my schedule so I know if it blows up, I can spend the rest of the day trying to fix it.
Yeah. The other thing is so Apple will push out stuff that like breaks components. And when they don't do that, the other issue is if you want a nice, resilient on-site Mac server, you want backups onto secondary drives, right? They will often, in a random patch release, completely reset all the permissions for all the drives that are plugged in. Back to a otherwise sane default. I don't have a huge complaint about it per se. It breaks your backups.
Yeah, you don't want that.
It breaks your secondary, your redundant backups. So, and then you have to go back in and plug, turn the thing back on and set the permissions back up.
Okay, so
That's silly.
I'm going to pivot. Oregon Dean says encryption at rest. I seem to have problems when encrypting using admin tools. If I rewrite over the existing files I've taken to saving as a
What does that
new,
mean?
I'm not clear. I mean,
I wouldn't, whatever you're doing, don't save it over the same file. I would never do that anyway. That's a destructive change. If you're asking about, the only thing I could think of that uses those words, but you haven't used it, is like doing the data migration tool with an encrypted database or something.
yeah, but you never
Can you?
overwrite the file, right? So admin.
No, and that one doesn't do it anyway because it does the migration elsewhere and then
Mhm.
takes it live. It moves it into
Oh,
place.
that one. Okay, yeah, that's
Um,
the super experiment.
That's the only thing I can think about like that.
Oh, yeah.
The extra tools in Pro that do that, no, I would not ever overwrite the existing file like that. Put ear on the end. If you need to rename it when you're done because you're gonna, put it live at the old file name or something like that, do that. But do that in the database directory. Don't do that using.
Are we understanding what you're even asking? It's such a, I mean, Oregon Dean. I don't.
Yeah, that's why I'm.
I don't know
if you
if
could
it,
provide
if
more
it's.
detail, that would be fantastic. Basically, yeah, that's the project folder. Okay, that's
Yeah.
yeah. Don't. My advice is don't.
Yeah, you're not going to don't overwrite it. Okay. Why
Yeah, my
bother?
advice is don't.
Just write a separate file. But we always
I've had
have a
so many
rollback.
problems with that dialogue. I used to do that when I first started at RCC, trying to like, oh, I don't need it. Just overwrite the file. No, source file, destination file should be two different files. The way that I broke that down was to have I would like put the pre and post files in different directories. So I'd have like a non-ear or a de-eared and an ear directory, or whichever way I was going, right?
Mhm.
If I'm earing it, then I have a pre-ear and a post-ear.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and as a reminder for ear is like a non-rewindable kind of thing. If you lose the password, so please, 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 please do not lose the password. As a general rule, I'm to the point now after dealing with all the pain and agony and watching businesses lose databases with Cloud One, which has now
what does it
been.
mean can't set ear on server? Sorry, keep going, Richard.
Yeah, I just yeah, that's fine. It's just please save your ear password, right? Which question is that?
Have to do before upload. You've never been able to do that. The only place that it will ear it for you on the server, no, it's below the photo.
Oh,
His
okay.
question is below the photo. Yeah. The only place that you were ever able to do ear on the server, for some definition of those words, was cloud. And that is Cloud 1 or Cloud 2. It will do it in both places. FileMaker Server product, as far as I'm aware, has never been able to do that. Perhaps Richard can correct me about some ancient version.
I don't forcibly force ear. I try to avoid it because I've lost passwords with that before. So I don't ear unless there's a.
Yeah, only Cloud 1 did that users would have much access to. Cloud 2 forces it. They either won't let you upload it that way, or actually I think current versions set a password for you if you upload an encrypted database or a non-encrypted database. It just sets one, and then, oh yeah, FYI, if you've uploaded databases to Cloud 2, please go get your ear password because it will show it to you on the admin console.
Yeah, it will
You
do
can
that.
download it.
You can
You
right click
need to
on
put that
Cloud 2.
download.
You can right click on the file that's being hosted, and it'll say "Show me my ear password." It's great.
Yeah.
And that's because Claris is Apple, and Apple security wants to make sure everything, if there's an encryption option, it's turned on, right? That's why all
Yep.
that exists.
And David Angel, yes, the JDK for FileMaker Server 19.4 is 11. Just go download Corretto 11, download the Windows x64 JDK, install it, and reboot FMS. You'll be good to go, and then
All
toggle
right,
your
so
button.
Ionis on YouTube. More than 10 years since the last time I worked with FileMaker. I used to love it. No idea how it might look today. Actually, it looks visually very similarly. Fundamentally, the product at the core is the same product. It's got more capabilities. It's frankly faster on the server now than it used to be. There's certain releases that are much, much faster. The server does more sorting now for us. It does more all sorts of stuff. So, yeah, I think it's better and faster and more useful if you haven't used it in a long time. It's not like they reinvented, like, reinvented the internet and you wouldn't recognize it. It's basically the same. I tell you what's new over the last 10 years that's the most revolutionary thing is the ability to make API interaction calls with curl options. So a curl is a HTTP request. Imagine HTTP www.jacob.com / blah, 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 and then a bunch of these other little hidden variables that are in that request. That's what a curl, little c, big URL is, right? It's a URL from a layman's perspective with a lot of little hidden options on it. Allows you to make the call kind of with a browser to a service, and the service sends you back data, or you can post data. It's how you could send information like to PayPal, run this credit card for this amount, it runs it, brings it back to you. And all you're doing is passing back URLs and the response from the URLs. And so that's the biggest thing. That started in 16, was refined in 17. That was about 8 years ago. So that's stuff that you haven't seen before, but I think the URL curl integration options are by far the biggest change. I mean, Claire's took, since you've been gone, so let's talk about like you're like the caveman, you fell out of, we thawed you out, you're the cave person. We thawed you out, so there's curl options that have changed, and they took FileMaker Server and they glued it into Amazon and created a service that they charge a lot of money for. So if you don't want to roll your own Amazon server and you don't have a lot of requirements for it, like plugins and things like that, you can go to Claris, give them the file, give them a bunch of money, and they will host it for you. Okay, so that's different. That's called Claris FileMaker Cloud. Oh, and the company changed its name back from FileMaker to Claris. So don't let that throw you. So if
you were old enough to remember when it was Claris previously, we're
Oh well, if you've been gone for 30 years, the name's the same. Okay, the name's the same. All right, so yeah, hey, what's it like to talk to people who can frame the conversation for a caveman who just thawed himself out? Thawed out with what were the giant elephant things up in the Ice Age, and they froze the like an elephant, but the tusks and stuff, but they're giant mammoth.
The mammoth.
Mammoth. Yeah. I love questions that are fun. We got dead raccoons that have been painted over. We got an Iceman who just came out of ice. Thank you for asking the question. I'm not making fun of you. I think this is great. This is very educational. All right. Well, it's time for the hour, and everyone's died and gone away. So Moki said, sadly the same. I wish they would fix inspectors. JSON SQL is big. 16 was awesome, and that's when I came back. Yeah, there's a lot. There's always something new going on. How to keep a backup without ear? It doesn't work that way. If you have an ear file running on a server, it makes backups. All the backups will always be ear. Period. Non-negotiable. If you have a file that's not eared, not encrypted, and you make backups, then all the backups will not be eared. There's no like auto cross-pollinating, and that's for David Angel.
No.
Have a copy backup from the server.
It means taking the copy of the file and manually decrypting it when you want that to happen.
Yeah.
And then calling that a backup. Yeah. That's all.
Yeah. Or you could say, hey, Siri, make a copy and de-ear it for me. And then she's just going to erase your hard drive. So, well, you guys will see that on Tuesday with Calvin. That'll be exciting.
That'll be fun, yeah.
That'll be fun. I'm sure he'll come up with something good. All right. Well, that's about all we got today, everyone. We greatly appreciate all the questions. If you are watching any of our training, you have a problem with your video player, shoot us an email to support at RC Consulting. We're happy to answer your questions. We'll direct you and set you up and try to straighten you out if at all possible.
Also update your Mac, because the only time that we've really had true video playback issues with the new player, except for I think there was a bug at one point, but
it's Mojave. Mojave, the audio won't play through the Mac correctly on Mojave, and that's a Mac Apple bug.
It's a Vimeo, Safari, etc. Yeah, it's nothing with us, but yeah.
All right, cool. That's it. Well, we really appreciate it. It's Friday. We'll catch you Monday with, I don't know, Margaret and Michael and probably someone else too. All right, thanks, Jacob, for the hard work. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, sir.
All righty. got a report of an individual up here who may be a FileMaker license. Well, it's potentially expired. Look in the back of that car right there. Looks like the FileMaker license has expired. Sir, I need you to step out of the vehicle. Sir, step out of the vehicle. Sir.